So volume 130's cover finally dropped, and it confirms what everyone's been arguing about, Gunko's hair color and her eye color. I noticed a few things that moment I saw it, so I'm going to share those thoughts here. Right now, the story cut away from Elbaf and it zoomed in on got badly. But I think that's the all to set up why Luffy fight in Elbaf will matter. In One Piece, mid-arc flashbacks usually exist to tell us why Luffy needs to punch them villains in this moment. In Wano Kuni, once we understood what really happened to Kozuki Oden, the Onigashima raid kicked off. On Egghead, Luffy was already scuffing with Borsellino and Lucci, but right before facing Saturn, we got Kuma and Bonnie's backstory. We watched what Saturn did to them, Kuma showed up and decked him. And then Luffy and Bonnie teamed up and shattered Saturn all over again. So what about now? In the present day Elbaf scene, Imu shows up taking over Gunko's body. My bet is, as soon as this flashback wraps, we'll see Imu in Gunko takes the stage. This past arc is basically giving us the Imu 101, what Imu is and where that power comes from. So when we jump back, the stakes will feel crystal clear. That said, Gunko isn't gone. She's being parasitized, she still has her own personality. And the weird, layered relationship between Imu and Gunko, the new volume 130 cover pushed my hunch even closer to certainty. I wanted to get this take on record before the flashback ends, which is why I made this video. Anyway, on this channel, I usually dive deep into One Piece from the perspective of someone who reads the original Japanese version. Here, I focus mainly on breaking down the latest chapters, while over on Dawn Dusk channel, I post even deeper, more original theories and analysis. And if you want to go beyond that, to really dig into the language and hidden meanings, check out my Patreon page. Every week, I upload detailed Japanese analysis of each chapter, and even on weeks when One Piece itself is on break, I keep posting, covering things like Oda Sensei's early drafts and concept notes from One Piece magazine. Each platform has its own purpose and flavor, so feel free to enjoy whichever one fits you best. So on the cover of the volume 113, we finally see Gunko in color. She's revealed to be a woman with blue hair. But there's another detail that really caught my eye. Her asymmetrical eyes. Her left eye is red, while the right eye is blue. In one of my earlier videos on Dawn Dusk channel and here, I mentioned that the right eye, the one that completely blacked out in manga, was probably Gunko's original eye, and sure enough, that new cover confirmed that her right eye is blue. That means left eye, which is red, might actually be reflecting Imu's influence, like the color itself changed after Imu took over. Now, I'm sure a lot of you noticed that too. We've actually talked about this few times already here on this channel and also over on Dawn Dusk channel. But I personally believe Gunko's design was inspired by the character from famous Japanese children's picture book series called Anpanman. Specifically, the character Roll Panna-chan. Her biggest trait is that she has two hearts, one good and one evil. When she's in her good state, the red heart shines, and when she's in her evil state, the blue heart glows. The dual colored contrast, the red and blue, plus the bandaged face, all of that really lines up with Gunko's design. So in that sense, it seems very likely that Oda Sensei took some inspiration from Roll Panna-chan when creating Gunko-chan. I actually made a theory before suggesting that, like Roll Panna-chan, Gunko-chan might have two personalities, a good side and the evil side, coexisting within her. And recently, we've started to see a little hint of that dual nature in the manga itself. But there's another new piece of information we just learned. Gunko's blue hair. That might give us one more clue. Let's take a look at her previous title, Kami no Jujin, the God's Blade of Obedience. Literally, it means the blade that obeys the gods. In the Japanese version, it's described as the one under the protection of the God's Knight. Now, Japanese term okakae that's used there implies something like a personal retainer or someone being raised or trained by an organization. So as a native Japanese speaker, the nuance I get from that phrase feels kind of like a trainee knight being raised by god's knights. That could mean people like Goring and Shamrock might have originally come from that same group, Kami no Jujin. They studied as divine blades, and eventually rose through the rank to become official member of the God's Knights, Kami no Kishidan. Now, some of you might be feeling a bit contradiction here, right? Because of the God's Knights are supposed to have undying body, yet almost all of them clearly aged like normal humans. If you look closely, both Goring and Somers have visibly aged since the events 38 years ago. Their faces, their builds, everything shows the passage of time. But then, there's Gunko. Gunko's appearance, even after 56 years, is almost exactly the same. That means she's being granted a power that even the God's Knights themselves don't seem to have, the power to stop aging. And the only other people who appear to have been granted that ability are Gorosei, 5 elders. We already know certain has been alive for over 200 years, so agelessness clearly exists within the highest rank of the world government, Gorosei. So then, why would Gunko, who's described as being just a divine blade of obedience, or God's Knights have been given that same privilege? Well, the most likely answer is that she's one of Im's favorites. And that's where her blue hair, revealed in volume 113, starts to become the key detail. If we back 800 years, the person Imu seems to have adored the most was probably Queen Lily from Alabasta. And the evidence for that is right there in the manga. In that flower room where Imu usually resides, we can see a photo of a woman who look exactly like a lily. Plus, Imu specifically ordered the 5 elders to bring her descendant, Bibi, to him. And of course, Bibi is a woman with blue hair. So it's not a stretch to imagine that Imu is protecting Lily's image onto Gunko. So in other words, Imu may have seen Lily's reflection in Gunko's appearance, that same soft blue hair, and decided to grant her eternal youth, keeping her close as his personal favorite. It's almost like Imu has been endlessly searching for replacement for Lily, someone to fill that void from 800 years ago. Now, there's one more interesting piece to this puzzle. During Gunko's brief flashback, we got a hint that she used to live in the same kingdom Brook once served as a royal guard before Gunko joined the Celestial Dragons. If that's true, it means the kingdom where Brook once worked might also have been connected to blue-haired woman, possibly one Imu had taken an interest in. So when Imu said, "Bibi ga hoshii," I want Bibi, it might not have been the first time he gave such an order. He could have personally instructed the God's Knights to seek out and retrieve that blue-haired woman from Brook's old kingdom. That would nearly explain why Brook already knows about the God's Knights, and also why Gunko seems to be treated so differently by Imu. Everything ties together once you Gunko as not just a subordinate, but as Imu's handpicked successor to Lily's image. So if Gorosei bring back Bibi to marry Joa, Gunko might be abandoned. Now, one more thing I really want to point out from the newly revealed volume cover. Chewing gum. Up until now, most of the world government characters we've seen in their awakened form have had that hagoromo, that floating divine robe, in black. We saw it with Lucci and Kaku's Devil Fruit awakenings, and even the 5 elders when they transform into those monstrous yokai-like forms, all of them were wrapped in black garments. But Kiringam's case is different. The hagoromo that appears from his ability is white. And that's really worth paying attention to. So the question is, what determines the color of this hagoromo in the first place? Up until now, the general belief was that those serving under the world government or those influenced by Im's power manifested black robes. But now that Kiringam, a member of the God's Knights, has shown a white one, that theory doesn't quite hold up anymore. That suggests his transformation isn't powered by Imu's influence at all. Of course, in the case of the five elders, their abilities are likely granted by Imu, so in their case, it still makes sense to see it as Imu's power at work. Now, here's another really interesting detail. Every time this Hagoromo appears, it's always tied to Zone-type devil fruit. And according to Nasujiro, zones are said to possess a will of their own, which means these zone fruit could actually be carrying the will of people who lived over 800 years ago. If that's true, then it's possible that back in that era, the fruits eaten by people aligned with the world government's side manifested black robes, while those eaten by people of the ancient kingdom showed a different color, maybe white, maybe something else entirely. So following that line of thought, Kiringam's devil fruit might have originally belonged to someone from the ancient kingdom, and that could explain something emotional too. Just like how Gunko's heart ached when she saw Brook, maybe when Kiringam encountered Nika, his devil fruit, or rather the will sleeping inside it, might awaken those old memories and act on its own, possibly even stopping Kiringam's movement completely. If that happens, it could be a huge turning point, the moment when the will of the past finally starts moving again in the present, like MF. So it turns out that Kiringam's power doesn't come from the same source as the five elders. According to his introduction panel, it's actually the Ryuryu no Mi mythical zone, model Kirin. And that alone opens up a whole new layer of analysis we need to dig into. Now, here's the interesting part. The Kirin, as a mythical creature, doesn't actually have any legend about manifesting dreams or creating illusions like the Kiringam does. That ability doesn't really exist in its original lore. But think about this. We've already seen other devil fruit powers behaving in the ways that go way beyond what their names imply. Like Luffy can pull goggles straight out of his hair in Gear 5th, or how over the Pteranodon could stretch his face like a slingshot for long-range attacks. Or even how Kaku himself can morph into those shape-aged cube-like forms. These are all things that shouldn't logically fit the animal model at all. So what's going on here? Well, remember what Vegapunk said. A devil fruit represents a possibility of human evolution that someone once wished for. That line hits different now. It suggests that the flexibility, the creativity of each fruit's power is actually rooted in human imagination, and that the idea of human imagination, the freedom to shape your reality however you want, is perfectly embodied in the Gomu Gomu no Mi, aka Hito Hito no Mi model Nika. Once Luffy awakened Nika's power, he started doing literally anything he could imagine, stretching, twisting, pulling objects from nowhere, even pulling out pops like bats or glasses. That's not logic, that's pure imagination made real. And that's what makes him free. Now, Saturn once described Bonnie's Toshi Toshi no Mi, the age fruit, as a power that narrows a possible future as you grow older and more realistic. Basically, the older you get, the more limited your imagination becomes. But when Bonnie actually saw Nika, when she truly believed that form exists, she was able to recreate it herself. That's imagination overriding realism. In the same way, Gunko often reacts like childlike innocence, those spontaneous, unfiltered emotions. That kind of pure imagination might be exactly why her arrow-shaped power can take such fantastical, otherworldly form. It's not bound by logic, it's imagination of the child made real. And here's the really poetic contrast. The Muma soldiers, created by Kiringam's ability, weren't born from his imagination. They were born from imagination of children of Elbaf. Meanwhile, Soma's imagined salt is a manifestation of more adult way of thinking. So even within this arc, Oda Sensei is drawing a beautiful contrast. The limitless imagination of a child versus the grounded realism of adults. When you look at that way, it all comes full circle. The true power of devil fruit might not just depend on what kind of devil fruit it is, but on how free and imaginative its user's mind can be. That's the essence of it. The closer you are to the heart of a child, the closer you are to becoming free. Just like the sun god Nika himself. Freedom may bring incredible power, but at the same time, it comes with serious downside. It drains you fast. Luffy can turn into Nika and fight freely, however he wants, but as time passes, his body starts to age and his strength drops drastically. That's the trade-off. When Bonnie transformed into Nika, she also quickly reverted to her normal form, saying, "I'm at my limit. Staying free is exhausting. もう無理、自由疲れる." That line really says it all. So even in the future battles, Luffy is probably going to keep using Nika's abilities without holding back. But this rapid energy drain is definitely going to be a weakness. The key point here is how Luffy's body actually works. Even if he becomes old and weak, the moment he eats something, he recovers. That's likely why in this scene, Oda Sensei included that line of dialogue about Kiringam's conjured food. How it can't actually give people energy. It's a subtle but important detail. In other words, people who use these free-form abilities need real energy to keep going. You can't just fake it. That idea might actually become a big key for the story moving forward. Think about it. In Wano Kuni, it was Caribou who brought Luffy food when he was on the brink. Then in Egghead, it was Borsalino. And what those two have in common is that neither of them started out as Luffy's ally. Yet, both of them ended up supplying him with the energy he needed most. So in the final war, when Luffy burns through his stamina again and his body starts aging, I'm personally really looking forward to seeing who's gonna show up next with food. If I had to guess, it might actually be Buggy. Because think about Buggy's track record. He used Luffy to get Captain John's treasure map, escaped from Impel Down thanks to him, and even during Marineford, he played the role of delivering his straw hat to Law. He's the kind of guy who ends up helping Luffy whenever their interests happen to line up. Not out of kindness, but out of pure convenience. I can totally see that happening again. And of course, even in that situation, Buggy would probably be scheming how to twist things in his favor, trying to walk away with all the credit, like he always does. By the way, it was revealed this time that Gunko has blue hair, but personally, I don't think that means she's connected to Buggy. However, I did talk before in a Dawn Dusk video about Buggy's possible connection to the Nefertari family, so if you are curious about that theory, go check it out. And that wraps up today's breakdown. We focus mainly on the details revealed through the cover of chapter 113. By the way, I also offer private Japanese lessons as well as translation and marketing support for anyone doing business aimed at Japan. If you are interested, feel free to reach out to me through Instagram or email. Alright, that's it for now. See you in the next video.